Jake Paul will be facing the most feared man on earth, Iron Mike Tyson, on Netflix in a boxing match. And honestly, this is just insane. Think about it like this. Jake Paul, one of the most famous YouTubers in the world and once was a Disney Channel actor in the height of his YouTube career, now turned professional boxer, will be facing Mike Tyson, the youngest and still is the youngest heavyweight champion in the world, having his last fight against another boxing legend, Roy Jones Jr., in an exhibition fight. And honestly, this boxing match could break numbers and possibly be the biggest boxing match ever in this generation. But I feel like whenever the news dropped that this fight was happening, I still feel like the public eye is not giving Jake Paul the respect and credit he deserves. And I'm here to give some credit that Jake Paul has done in the sport of boxing, while also calling out some flaws Jake Paul needs to work on in order to get respect from the public eye. Because whenever we look at Jake Paul's professional boxing career, he probably has one of the most interesting resumes in all of combat sports. Jake Paul has fought Elise Gibb, Nate Robinson, and 4 MMA fighters that consist of Ben Askren, Tyron Woodley 2 times.
I just bet I beat his ass. That's my bet.
I'ma eat your ass. I'ma beat your ass.
Anderson Silva and Nate Diaz.
I think this is what's going on in Nate's brain.
And on top of that weird resume that he has, Jake Paul has fought 3 actual legitimate boxers consisting of Tommy Fury.
Are you looking at ugly among them, that? I thought I was ugly, needed a bolt through my neck to look like Frankenstein, but he beats me tenfold. Look at that jawline, my God. It's a good job you got a beard on there, pal. Leave it on, because Tommy definitely can't miss that with either hand.
Andre August.
First round, brother. First round. You ready? You work on that cardio?
Andre needs to be careful by ducking down.
This is over. And Ryan Borland.
Borland right now looks dazed and confused. Jake looking to end it right here and right now. And they've stopped it.
And out of all of these fights Jake Paul has done, he practically knocked out all of his opponents via knockout or TKO. And even if the fight went to decision somehow, he still would have knocked out his opponents throughout the whole fight. For example, whenever Jake Paul fought Nate Diaz, we never really saw Nate Diaz get knocked out cold at all in his professional career. But whenever Nate Diaz fought Jake Paul, Nate Diaz experienced a knockout for the first time ever. Jake Paul did a precise, beautiful shot on the side of the head, knocking out Nate Diaz. So if you ever fight Jake Paul, there's a very, very high chance that you may get knocked out by him, which is pretty impressive. And also what I started to realize about Jake Paul is that he's taking boxing really, really seriously. I mean, whenever I look at fighters like KSI or Logan Paul or any other YouTube boxer, I don't really see them as boxers. All I see from them is just YouTubers who are there to make content and not really go that far into actual professional boxing. But whenever I see Jake Paul in the press conferences or him fighting at all, I see something different in him. I don't really see a content creator. I don't really see a YouTube boxer. I see a true professional boxer.
My generation, it's my time to be a legend. You gotta beat a legend, okay? It's time for war. I asked him if he's ready. It's been nice. It's been sweet. I respect that man, but he's trying to take the food off my plate. He's trying to stop my run. And tomorrow, guess what, Ariel? I'm fucking him up! I'm fucking him up! Fucking him up!
And we need to make it clear to everyone in the world that Jake Paul is a real boxer, and we need to live with that fact for the rest of our lives. And I know what you guys are gonna say. How can we consider Jake Paul a real boxer even though he hasn't fought any real boxers at all? Well, let's break it down like this. Well, let's get rid of the fact that Jake Paul has fought old MMA fighters like Ben Askren, who was only there for the money. Nate Robinson, who's a whole basketball player. Tyron Woodley, even though he's not even a boxer. And Anderson Silva, who's considered one of the greatest UFC fighters of all time. We could absolutely erase those records off of Jake Paul, and we're only left with 3 fights. And that is with Tommy Fury, Andre August, and Ryan Borland. Those 3 opponents alone are legitimate, real professional boxers. So if you look at it in a certain way, Jake Paul only has 3 total fights in his record. 2 wins, Andre August and Ryan Borland, and 1 loss, which is Tommy Fury. Those 3 fights alone absolutely demolish any sort of YouTube boxer's records. Because whenever you look at all these YouTube boxers, they haven't fought any real fighters. But with Jake Paul, he fought 3 legitimate boxers, and we need to respect that. And that's why I think Jake Paul is a professional boxer. You really think that KSI is on the same level as Jake Paul? Absolutely not. What I noticed from Jake Paul is that he has a certain formula when it comes down to picking his opponents. For example, Jake Paul is going to fight Mike Tyson and the whole boxing match is going to be streamed on Netflix, correct? Let's just say all goes well for Jake Paul and he wins against Mike Tyson. What Jake Paul should be doing and has been doing in his massive fights like Nate Diaz, especially since this fight is taking place on Netflix, he should use that audience that he has and attract them to his other fights in the near future.
PFL, that's the offer. Let's run it back in MMA. Make it fair. I won 1. Now it's your chance in your home territory. MMA, let's do it.
And whether that audience wants to see Jake Paul fail or succeed in boxing does not matter, because the whole goal for Jake Paul, especially for these big money fights, is to attract viewers to prey on Jake Paul's downfall. But this is where Jake Paul messes up. What Jake Paul shouldn't do is flex and pat himself on the back because he defeated an old lion legend like Iron Mike Tyson.
I will say he's improving a lot. He's dedicated to the sport. I don't know how good he is because he hasn't really faced a real fighter yet. It's not his fault. He signed to fight Tommy Fury.
Well, a 5-time world champion and Tyron Woodley's a real fighter.
Mate, he's not a real boxer. He's not, Jake.
Well, I mean,
Jake,
the first skill.
That is where Jake Paul's credit is absolutely lost. Like I said before, Jake Paul has a few accomplishments. Jake Paul has fought legitimate boxers like Tommy Fury, Andre August, and Ryan Borland. And we need to consider that and respect the fact that, A, Jake Paul is a real professional boxer. Jake Paul even paved the way for women's boxing, giving women's boxing a bigger audience and increasing women boxers' pay, which is a huge accomplishment. But like I said before, whenever Jake Paul flexes on the fact that he beat up MMA fighters like Tyron Woodley, Ben Askren, Anderson Silva, Nate Diaz, that's just kind of BS. Sure, Jake Paul, you fought fighters, but you didn't fight boxers. But let's just say Jake Paul reaches his ultimate goal into becoming a real boxing champion.
I have much bigger plans than him. I want to be a world champion. I'm going to become a world champion. That's the path I'm on.
Do you really want this boxing champion to flex on all of you that he beat up old MMA fighters in his first 10 professional fights? Speaking of that, one thing I would like to bring up is the fact that Jake Paul compares his first 10 professional fights against other boxers like Gervonta Davis and Terrence Crawford.
Doing what other fighters who are world champions now did in their 9th fight. Terrence Crawford, Gervonta Davis fighting guys, with nowhere near the experience level as Andre August, to build their experience level.
And I don't know about you, but I don't see that impressive at all. He uses this argument time and time again that, hey, look at your professional boxers' 10 professional fights and look at my first 10 professional fights. I fought more experienced guys than the current pound for pound fighters in their first 10 professional fights.
I fought way tougher opponents than a lot of your favorite boxers out there did in their 7th fight. So I think it makes sense.
Like, really, dude, you are Jake Paul. You've had fame since you were a freaking baby. If Jake Paul wasn't Jake Paul, he wouldn't have the fights that he would be having in his first 10 professional fights. But hey, credit is due. If any of us were in Jake Paul's position right now, we would probably fumble. I would also like to bring up the fact that without Jake Paul's toughness and discipline, he would not make it this far in boxing. Sure, Jake Paul has all the money that he ever wanted. He could buy the best boxing trainers. He could buy the best strength and conditioning coaches. He could do all of it. He could buy everything. But without hard work and training, you're nothing. But the problem still stands. Jake Paul shouldn't be flexing on the fact that he is beating up old legends. But at the same time, those big money fights do draw more attention and more viewers to Jake Paul. And that's what he wants. So whether or not Jake Paul beats up someone as iconic like Mike Tyson, at the end of the day, he gets experience from these fights. But more importantly, more viewers and more money. Just imagine Jake Paul finally reaching his goal into becoming a boxing champion. At this point, he probably fought so many noticeable fighters like Conor McGregor, Ryan Garcia, and more experienced boxers. We will probably hear more boos than cheers from Jake Paul. Once Jake Paul finally gets his hands on the golden belt, people will pray on his downfall. People will want to see him get knocked out cold in the worst way possible. And even worse, death on the ring. There's a reason why Jake Paul's called the problem child. People want to see him get down. People want to see him get knocked out. People want to see him dead. Whether you hate Jake Paul, whether you love Jake Paul, you're out here tuning in onto his fights for the near future. My name's Raheem Damali, and I'm out. Peace.